once we get that right, which is for me the most important thing, that they have, first of all, respect. The second one is commitment. The third one, passion. Those three ingredients are non-negotiable.
Hello and welcome into the Non-Negotiables podcast. I'm Gavin. I'm here tonight with Justin. How you doing, Jazz?
Hey, Gav.
Hello, mate. Pascal can't be with us tonight. He's in the Everglades hunting pythons with his bare hands. He's trying to break his own record that he set last year of 117 pythons in 2 days. I've got no idea what he did with the 412 pairs of boots, 345 belts, and 159 suitcases that he made out of them. Anyway, so another game, another win. Jazz. Fantastic 3 points at a tough place to go. The starting lineup, let's start there like we always do.
Sure thing.
Partey still at right back, Havertz in midfield, Eddie starting up front. I mean, none of us called it.
No, I don't think so. I was really surprised to see a few of those. I didn't think we'd see Partey at right back again, to be honest. Eddie was even a surprise with how good Trossard was in preseason. I get it, and I think a lot of it has to do with the absence of Zinchenko. But a bit of a surprise for sure. Your thoughts?
Well, I think some of it has to do with just wanting to get Partey and Rice in the same team while not dropping Havertz. I mean, Odegaard is obviously central to everything we do. So Odegaard's going to always play. And I just think it's his way of being able to do that. I was a little bit disappointed to see Gabriel on the bench again. I thought last night was a perfect game for Gabriel.
Well, maybe we should start there then, though, Gav. What do you think? What's the deal?
I mean, I do think it's tactical. I know I've heard a lot of people say it can't be tactical. There's got to be more to it. And I know there is interest in Gabriel from what I understand, not just from Saudi Arabia, but from Real Madrid and Juventus as well. Because apparently with Militao going down, they were looking for another centre-back. But honestly, I do think it's tactical. I think this is about getting Partey, Rice and Havertz on the same pitch at the same time. And the only other way I could think of that he was going to do it is to play Havertz up top, but that clearly isn't his plan.
I mean, it makes the unfortunate Timber signing make a lot more sense, doesn't it? Because we'd have been able to use him on the left or the right, and it'd be analogous to what we're doing right now. But now Timbers went down, and Partey is kind of the only option we have to do a Zinchenko-like role in the back line, right?
This is going to be interesting when Jesus gets back as well, because
I agree.
I think Havertz we said this in pre-season, right? That Havertz needs Jesus up there. I think a lot of what Havertz is doing is kind of wasted a little bit because it's not Havertz almost plays up front half the time. And I don't think Eddie is used to being big man, little man partnership kind of thing. He's played up front on his own the whole time, basically. I think Jesus is he's more of a link player than Eddie is. And I think Havertz is really going to benefit from that a lot when he comes back. The Partey at right back thing, I don't mind it. And I understand why he moves Ben White inside alongside Saliba, because first off, Ben White is obviously a little bit better on the ball than Gabriel, although I think Gabriel was very underrated on the ball. But they also do that thing that we didn't see a lot of last night, but we did against Forest that I really like, when Partey actually stepped inside to almost the third centre-back, and Ben White went on the outside and overlapped. And I thought that was some of our best football against Forest when we did that. We didn't see a lot of it last night. But I do wonder, I'd said to you that I had a feeling that Gabriel might come in at left-back, and I would really have liked to have seen that last night. If he was going to go with this system, I would have preferred to see Gabriel out there other than Tomiyasu in that left-back spot.
Yeah, excuse me. I do think there was something very clever about having Ben White come outside and overlap that I appreciated, and I think it's going to keep opposition on their toes for sure. Gabriel at left back, I don't know 100% how I feel about that.
But he didn't. But Tomiyasu didn't play like a marauding left back. Tomiyasu played like a third centre back. I mean, and I don't want to bring this name up because I don't want to open up the can of worms again. But it's sort of the role that Tierney was playing for a while. That third centre back on the left hand side, and I think Gabriel would be a lot more capable of doing that than Tomiyasu. Not that Tomiyasu's a problem, because Tomiyasu's a good player, but I would have preferred to have seen Gabriel there.
I feel like there's something I'm struggling to find the right word, but I feel like with Tomiyasu and Trossard, you have two players that are really never going to be starters, but they're going to be plug and play depending on where you need them.
Yeah, and you need a couple of players like that. I think it's great that we've got players like that, because we've not had that for ever, really.
Oh, no. I agree 100%. And I don't have a problem with it. I've heard a lot of discourse, especially with regards to Trossard, about he deserves to start. But I think his role here is perfect. And in Tomiyasu's, to get back to the subject, is really good there. I think he's plug and play anywhere on the back line. And he does a fine job. And the fact that he can be a fullback but invert is great, especially with Timber's injury.
Yeah, so to the game then. So it started, and we started really, really fast. Kai Havertz did brilliantly. It was a little Eddie knockdown that kind of got half intercepted. Havertz kind of wins it back, shifts the ball, moves it over to Martinelli. We're less than 2 minutes into the game. And I actually thought Martinelli could have hit that first time rather than trying to cut back inside. And by the time he cut back inside, it let the defender get across and he hit the defender. But what a start that could have been.
Yeah, Gabby is a pro player and knows better than I do, but this actually almost drove me crazy watching it, because I really feel like if he'd have hit it first time, I mean, he would have been golden. But watching him kind of flail in and out, it was really frustrating.
Well, I think that kind of set the tone for his night as well, right? Because I don't think Martinelli had the best night overall.
No, and it felt a lot more decision-wise than it did like technically or anything like that. His decisions just seemed a bit, a bit off.
Yeah, it wasn't his usual game for sure. And then we had 3 Eddie moments from the 25th minute to the half an hour. It started with a brilliant dribble over on the left-hand side of the box that was almost Jesus-like, where he took on 2 players, slalomed into the box, and he went down also very Jesus-like. And it was obviously never a penalty. Then we had the one where Saka kind of cuts in and he slips it through, and Eddie does a magnificent turn. It's absolutely brilliant, that turn. It's reminiscent of the goal against West Ham, actually. And he hits the post, and I'm not sure he could have done any better than that. And then we get to the miss. Rice, fantastic little ball through, and Eddie just tried to lift it over the goalkeeper who was coming out, and he lifted it over the bar. And that really should have been the goal.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, I remember discussing this with you and Paz on WhatsApp, and I was pretty harsh on Eddie throughout the game. But after watching the highlights, I think he actually did quite well and was pretty unlucky with some of these chances. And I want to apologize, because I think he was better than I thought he was in the moment.
I thought Eddie had an absolutely superb game. I've got to say, I mean, we'll come on to Declan Rice a bit later on, but I thought Declan Rice was absolutely sensational. But had it not been for Declan Rice, I think Nketiah was right up there with Saliba as our best player on the night. I really did think Nketiah was fantastic for the time he was on. But this is the problem, right? Eddie has to score more than anyone. If Eddie doesn't score, people are going to say Eddie had a bad game. And Eddie didn't have a bad game. The ball just didn't go in.
Yeah, it's always going to be the frustration, especially with a your kind of plan B striker. I feel like people give Jesus a lot of leeway with his finishing. He's just, he's great in 99% of aspects for a forward, but he's not a great finisher. But people don't give that leeway to Jesus, in myself included, to be fair. I mean,
to Eddie, you mean?
Yeah, for Eddie, I'm sorry. Yeah, people don't give that leeway to Eddie, and he does do a lot of good stuff off the ball, I think.
Yeah, he does, and like I said, he did a lot of it yesterday. A lot of the spinning in behind, a lot of his movement was absolutely fantastic. It really was, and we'll come on to the goal in a minute, and that all came from that. But before that, in the first half, we had a little bit of play where Saliba actually made a mistake, and then the recovery to get back and the tackle. That's why he's probably the best defender in the Premier League right now, and he's probably a year away from being the best defender in the world.
Mate, the little clap from Ayew after he was down, he didn't even appeal. He didn't ask for a foul. He knew
no, and Ayew was a pain in the arse all night.
He was.
And he's always a pain for us, but he was diving all over the place and everything, and he didn't even appeal for that one.
It's really interesting because I feel like if I ever watch Crystal Palace, just playing anybody else, I'm always like, Ayew is shit. I can't believe
it's like Mikel Antonio at West Ham. He is awful against everyone and then beasts us.
Yeah, it's just like that. Yeah, it's crazy, but he was pretty brilliant on the night, to be honest. To
be honest though, they and again we'll go through the second half. They really didn't have much all night. They really didn't have much at all. Watching it back, I watched it back this afternoon. A little bit of behind the curtain stuff here, but I've actually got COVID at the minute, so I've been feeling pretty shit all day. So I actually this afternoon watched the whole game again, and it was a very different watch the second time around than it was the first time around, because obviously in the moment you've got the nerves and that. But when I looked at it back, they really didn't do anything in that first half. The only thing they did, and it was a taste of things to come. Just before half time, Eze went running into the box and just threw himself to the floor. It was obviously never a penalty and it just got waved away. But that really was it in that first half. Other than that, they had absolutely nothing. And we were completely in control. We should have been in front.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm noticing, it's only 2 games, so you don't want to glean too much from it, but it does kind of feel, to you, what do you think? Is it a game where we've kind of controlled 2 first halves and then maybe this was obviously very different from the last one, but I did feel like we weren't quite as much in control in the second half?
So I think when you watch it the second time round, it looks like a different game, right? Because we did control that second half. We just controlled it in a different way. Until the sending off, we had over 70% of the possession, right? We had all of the ball until the sending off. After the sending off, and I didn't particularly like the way we handled it, especially in the moment, we basically just sat back, but all they did was play in front of our back line. That's all they did. We were still in control. We were just in control without the ball. And then the late sub of Jorginho, who was absolutely fantastic. And I give Jorginho a lot of stick, and he's not my favourite player, but I thought he was absolutely magnificent when he come on. And then obviously Zinchenko came on really late. But those two on the pitch, I think if he'd have made those subs sooner, and again, we're on to Arteta's subs again, but I think had he brought Zinchenko and Jorginho on sooner, I think it would have been even more comfortable. But I really think it was a controlled performance throughout the game, even in that second half when we let them have the ball from the 20th to like the 87th minute.
It's interesting. Obviously we're not going to be able to see it like full-fledged, but it seems like the entire transfer strategy for Arteta is basically about control.
Yes.
If you think we have, Timber, Zinchenko, Rice, Saliba, Odegaard, and Jesus on the pitch, we are going to have 80% possession in every game.
And the interesting thing, and this is actually something my boy Elliot pointed out to me, Arteta takes our pace off late in the game, and it can get really, really frustrating because you're thinking, Jesus Christ, why is Martinelli off the pitch at this point? But the reason he does it is because he brings him on to bring on security on the ball and to really control the game. So I can see, I'm not sure I like it, but I see why he does it. And you're right, it is about control. And I think a lot of this stretches back to those 2 games at West Ham and Liverpool last season, where I think he's looked back at last season and gone, right, we're not doing that again. We're going to shut shit down.
Yeah, maybe. I almost feel like this dates back to before that for Arteta, but I can definitely see those 2 games being, a major, like driving the nail home, for the strategy. But I do find it really fascinating. I mean, we just like shut shit down like immediately. And I was kind of curious about your opinion, though. I mean, as a fan, I think we all, would prefer the team to go for the throat. What do you think
We
about
want to
this?
win 8-0 every game, don't we? Let's
Yeah,
be
of course.
fair.
Yeah.
That's what we want. We all want to win 8-0. I'm not a huge fan of this trying to shut games down, especially when I don't think it's necessary. And I don't think either of these last two. I think it was less of it against Forest. I don't think we did this against Forest. I think we just basically took our foot off the gas. I think this was very different. I think this was intentionally trying to just slow the game down and control it. So I do think that it's two slightly different circumstances. But obviously, as a fan, you're never going to be a fan of it. It's not what we want. I mean, we hate watching Manchester City, right? I don't even watch Manchester City games because they're dull.
Yeah.
That seems kind of what we're going for.
It does. Yeah, it does a bit. I think we do feel less robotic, at least in the final third, than City does. And I don't know if it's just like personnel or if it is manager strategy or not, but I'd really prefer us not to be a little Manchester City. Do you know what I mean? Because
I like the bit of individual stuff, and I think with Martinelli and Saka, we're still going to have that, and Ødegaard obviously brings in them moments of magic, and I think we're still gonna be that little bit more inventive, and you've got to remember as well that we're still bedding into whatever it is we're trying to do this season, so we may not have seen everything yet. We've had a couple of injuries that we've got to cope with, and in Jesus, a really big injury. That's a player that would start every game. So yeah, we'll see how we grow into it. But the second half, we started quite slowly, and immediately Palace had a chance. There was a lovely little flick around the corner from Schlupp to Tyrick Mitchell, who'd actually had a pretty good game, and he just fired across to nowhere. So it was a little bit of a worrying start, but we kind of got back on top really quickly after that.
So I missed a decent bit of the second half live, and I wasn't able to do a rewatch today, but I followed up a couple different highlight reels multiple times. So I'm not going to be. I wish Paz was here for this because I'm not going to be as knowledgeable as of the second half for the full game. But from what it looked like, we were still majorly in control.
Yeah, and then we get to a little kind of mad 10, 15 minute spell. It started with Ayew, who was already on a booking, clinging on to Saka, almost hanging on his back as Saka was trying to get away, and pulled him down. And the ref didn't get a second yellow, and my WhatsApp was lighting up with everybody. How's that not a second yellow? Didn't get it. Well, from the free kick, Martinelli, incredibly quick thinking, and that was planned, by the way. I don't know if you saw Partey pointing at where to go, and Martinelli standing with his hands on his hips, basically faking like he wasn't ready to take it, while Eddie starts that move. So that was completely planned. Martinelli plays that ball through, Eddie's on his toes, knocks it past the keeper, down he goes, penalty.
Yeah, I mean, great play all around there, honestly. And this is where I say, Eddie is, even though even I give him, a hard time. I mean, he does a lot of really good stuff in games, right? I mean,
he does, and that was a brilliant bit of play from him and from Martinelli. In fact, Martinelli overhits it. That's why it ends up in a penalty, because if he'd have hit it a little bit softer, Eddie would have been able to turn and shoot on his right foot. But because he overhits it, Eddie has to do that. I do want to bring this up, though. It is a penalty, obviously. If it was up to me, that would never be a penalty. Never in a million years. I detest it when strikers hammer the ball out of play and then fall over a goalkeeper. To me, that is not a penalty. I know it is, and I know it's going to be given 10 times out of 10. But I will have to be fair on this because I do it when it gets given against us. I hate these penalties, and I don't think they should be penalties.
Yeah, I kind of have to agree. I mean, obviously, I'm really glad we got the penalty, but when the striker sees a defender or goalkeeper coming right out to him and just knocks the ball behind, they're not in control of the ball. You know what I mean? He knew exactly what he was doing, and he knew he had no chance of getting there. I'm super glad we got it, but yeah, I kind of agree. I don't like these either.
No, and it's what Harry Kane and Son do all the time. And, and you've got to be fair. I hate it when they do it. So I've got to say it when we do it. I detest these type of penalties. And I think the game would be better off if they said, look, if a forward whacks a ball out of play like this, we're not giving a penalty. I mean, even if you want to give an indirect free kick, which seems to have just gone out of the game completely now, the indirect free kick. Yeah. But if you want to do that, I would be more okay with it than this, because a goalkeeper sliding out 8 yards wide of goal at a striker who's out of control of the ball and knocked it out of play, and to be given a 0.77 chance of scoring a goal from that don't seem right to me.
Yeah, what is the keeper supposed to do?
Yeah, I think these penalties are ridiculous. But anyway, it was given.
Yeah.
And then a little bit of interesting gamesmanship. Saka goes and grabs the ball, stands by the penalty spot while all the pushing and shoving goes on. Players all get around him. As soon as the box clears, he throws the ball to Ødegaard. I wasn't surprised at this. This is exactly what I thought was going to happen, although I thought there was an outside chance it might be Havertz. Were you surprised?
Not really. I think we've discussed before. I think, we all said we would basically, be happy if Ødegaard started taking them. I like the gamesmanship that we saw. I think it shows, kind of some maturity and stuff like that. But yeah, I thought Ødegaard's penalty was brilliant. I think that he was obviously feeling more confident than Saka was in the moment. Well, I'm curious what your opinion is on if...
So, yeah, I was going to bring this up. I know what you're going to say, and I'm going to bring this up now. So Arteta's quote is, he was asked about Ødegaard taking a penalty, and he said, I have no clue. It's about the leadership of the players, and if they felt it was the right thing to do, for me, I'm fine. They have to make those decisions on the pitch. I was surprised like everybody else, but he scored the goal and won the game, which is the most important thing. I'm calling absolute bullshit. There is no way on earth that Mikel Arteta, being who he is, sends a team out there not knowing who's taking a penalty when it comes to it.
Yeah, I think I'm feeling the same way, Gav.
And I think there's something in this, right? By doing that, that means that next time Saka goes and grabs the ball, if we get awarded a penalty, before he throws it to Ødegaard, people don't know what he's going to do because Arteta has said, well, Ødegaard's not really the penalty taker. The penalty taker is whoever feels good at the time. So they don't know who to go and harass and harangue. So I think that's a big part of this. It's gamesmanship. But there is absolutely no way that Mikel Arteta did not know who was taking that penalty. They've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks in training. They've been hitting penalties in training. This was decided way before they went out on the pitch.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. But now the question remains, is Saka still the main penalty taker, you think?
No chance. No chance. No. Okay. Ødegaard's going to be the penalty taker until he misses one. He will. The only other thing that makes sense is I heard someone say, well, we're going to be in the Champions League, X amount of Champions League games in the group stages go to penalties. Are they pushing it around to try and see who, try and give people pressure penalties to see to see who can take them under pressure?
Yeah, I mean, it may be. I actually, I really appreciated the skill in the skill. I mean, what he did, Ødegaard. I mean, Ødegaard's penalty looked just effortless, and I'm normally not a big fan of the kind of stutter step hop right before the penalty, but man, he just looked so class doing it. Maybe it's just bias when I watch, Bruno Fernandes do it versus Ødegaard, but yeah, really good penalty. And I mean, could it have been tucked into the side anymore? I don't think so, man.
No, it was a perfect penalty. There's absolutely, and all these penalties have been like that in pre-season. He's taken a few in pre-season that have all been like that. Havertz one was absolutely fabulous in the Emirates Cup, which is why I thought maybe Havertz, because he's got a good record from a penalty spot. But that's it. So no, I don't, quite honestly, I don't think Saka is second or third choice on the list now. I think it will go Ødegaard, Havertz, and we've said all along, if Jorginho's on the pitch, Jorginho is probably the one that takes it, but he slots in there somewhere. So I would imagine Saka is at best fourth in line. I think he takes one if we go to a penalty shootout. But I think he's probably fourth in line for the job now.
Even Martinelli may be ahead of Saka. He didn't miss, right?
No, and he was, no.
He was the
Vieira missed the one against United, didn't he? But
Yep.
Martinelli was originally, we spoke about this a couple of years ago when we got that penalty at Stamford Bridge. Martinelli was the man who was supposed to take it, and Saka said, give me the ball.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So I'm wondering if maybe even he will be ahead, but I don't know. I mean, I think there's a big amount of confidence that comes with it. You know, like if a player steps up and is like, I want this, I'm going to score. You know, I think there is going to be some diversion to that, but at the same time, I think it's necessary to have a set taker, and I think it's going to be Martin for at least a little while.
There's also squad status to consider here, right?
Yeah,
like we're talking 2 years ago. Saka taking the ball off a 20-year-old Martinelli is not the same thing as this Martin Odegaard. This Martin Odegaard, if he's the one taking it, he's the one taking it. You're not taking the ball off him like you would off a 20-year-old Martinelli.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you Capitano, right? But I actually love that he's willing to step up. I mean, I know there was some controversy over, you know, who was going to be captain and stuff like that, but I think Martin stepping up, taking the armband, and he's just been a terrific leader, I think. And
mate, he was the natural choice. He was the only choice. He was every choice. There's to me, I didn't doubt it at the time. And in hindsight, it's 100% the right call. There's no one else. There's no one. Well, now we've got obviously Declan Rice, but up until then, there's no one else in this squad that I would rather see the armband on. Now, I think we've got a few that could wear it. I think Gabriel. I'm not sure about Saliba just yet. I think Saka would be more capable of it. So I think there's a few that Jesus is another one. I think
it's harder now. It's harder now than it was. You know?
But I think Odegaard is this team's leader, especially with Xhaka gone. Odegaard is the leader of this team.
Yeah, I agree with that. I saw a lot of opinions online, you know, about even people like Ben White, Ramsdale, Gabriel. You know, Odegaard was the right and natural choice, no doubt, in my mind.
Yeah, I agree. So between Ayew not getting a second yellow for pulling down Saka, then you get the penalty, and we had a little review for was there a block by Partey, wasn't there? I think the ref lost it a little bit during this period, and immediately we began to sit back as soon as we scored, which was kind of annoying. There was a little huddle, and I think it was actually a plan to sit back, not give anything away. And immediately Eze won a free kick on the edge of our box that was never a foul. Eze, I know you and Pass like Eze, but mate, he is annoying. I mean, he was on the floor all night diving. I mean, he must have done 4 dives in that game. Go on.
No, I was just I do like the player a lot, but I was frustrated with him.
He was so annoying last night.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he goes down and you know, and he blasts the ball over the top, whatever. And then we get to the Tomiyasu first booking. Now, I may be the only Arsenal fan in the world that doesn't really have a problem with this. We were wasting time. We'd already been warned about wasting time a couple of minutes before we got a goal kick. Thomas Partey went and got the ball, walked to between the touchline and the penalty area, dropped the ball and walked off. So Ramsdale had to come out and get it. The ref came over and he said to Partey and Ramsdale, no more. It was clear. No mass. Couldn't be clearer if he was Roberto Duran calling his way out of a fight. It was clear. No more. We then get a throw on down the left. Now, my problem here is this. Kai Havertz had no need to go over and pick that ball up. If Kai Havertz leaves that ball away, Tomiyasu walks slowly over to it, picks up the ball, takes 8 to 10 seconds to throw it in. There's not a problem. The problem was that Kai Havertz picked up that ball, held it for 15 seconds, and then threw it to Tomiyasu, and Tomiyasu walked up. That's where the problem was, right there. So I know that Tomiyasu isn't the one that deserved it because it was Havertz that was wasting the time, but it's just a case of you're the man holding the bag. And I just don't have an issue with it. I mean, I do have a little bit of an issue in that, I mean, you probably won't notice because this is very geeky, but I read it today. Palace had 2 throw-ins in the first half that took 26 seconds.
I actually do know this. Yeah.
You do? That
but go ahead
took 23.
Yep.
Palace had 2 more that took 22 seconds. And apparently somewhere in there, we had a throw-in that took 40 seconds.
Yep.
So why he chose this one? Well, I know it's because we'd just gone 1-0 up. And like I said, he was losing the plot a little bit. But I don't actually have a problem with Tomiyasu being booked for this.
I don't like time wasting. Like, I understand sometimes it's part of the strategy, but I think at the end of the day, I mean, excuse me, at the end of the day, the game is entertainment for the viewers, right? And I know there's close neighborhood connections and all that kind of stuff, but I just mean at the end of the day, it's an entertainment sport. I don't really like to see time wasting. It kind of grades on me. I don't blame Tomiyasu for this, though. I think he was just kind of, like you said, he was kind of the man holding the bag at the end. I don't think he was super at fault or anything. I was kind of wondering what was up with Havertz and if this was a whole kind of team coordinated thing.
It was 100%.
Yeah.
It was. We earned that booking. Tomiyasu might not have earned it, but we earned that booking between what Partey did before, between Ramsdale being slow, putting the ball down for the goal kick, and then between what Havertz did. That was a team booking, and we earned it.
Yeah. It does really feel that way. And now this was Tomiyasu's first, right?
That was the first one. So that was basically on the hour.
Okay. Like then I said, I just caught highlights, so I just simply tried to
straight. And then we had a little chance after that where Havertz hit a half volley and he tried to cut across it and he just didn't get across the ball enough and it went wide. And I think if that's one of them that whips into that far corner, this game looks a lot different for Kai Havertz than it does. I watching it again, Kai Havertz actually had another okay game. The same, really, it was very similar to his game against Forest where he gave us a lot, but it's a lot that you don't really realise as the game's happening. But I think had this gone in or had Martinelli scored that early chance and he'd have had an assist, you're looking at it differently.
Yeah, definitely. After reviewing it a few times, I think it's obvious Havertz is really, really good off the ball, I think. But
he wins everything, right? I think he won out of 8 aerial duels and he won 2 out of 2 on the floor. You saw the pressure he put on. You saw the way, again, we trap rather than press a lot of the time. Yeah. And he's brilliant at forcing people into lanes that we want them to go to.
Yeah, he really is. So, I mean, I think his off the ball work is brilliant. And I think even sometimes we don't even get to see it, just camera trailing. Do you know what I mean? Like,
you would see, if you were sitting in the upper tier of a stadium, you would see a lot more from him than you do on TV.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm coming from too. But as much as I'm hyped about him for that, I do wish we would see a little more on the ball. But that being said, I don't think he's been bad or anything. I really appreciate his off the ball work and just wish he did he's had a little more on the ball. But I agree with you 100%. If he tucks that into the corner, it's a different game for Havertz, and he may even be man of the match.
And hopefully that'll come. And then we come on to the sending off.
Now, Gav, can I ask you, was he up top at that point, or because I said
no, he was still at left 8, and okay. Eddie was up top. So the sending off comes just before the 70th minute, and it's basically a ball's cleared over the top. Tomiyasu is running with Ayew. There's no foul. Like, there is literally no foul. There is barely any contact between the two. Ayew goes down, holds his arms out to the ref. The ref cannot wait to get the yellow card out. And of course, because it's 2 yellows, it can't be reviewed by VAR. Yep. We can't appeal it, so there's no way that we're getting out of this. He's going to get game suspended. There's not really a lot to say about this other than it's just an absolutely ludicrous decision, especially because it came 5 minutes after 15 minutes after he refused to send Ayew off for a much, much worse and more flagrant foul on Saka.
This seemed like a very emotional decision from Coots. I think the
crowd played into it.
The crowd
there
definitely
play into it. And he just, like I said, I think he had a little spell between when he didn't send Ayew off through until this sending off. I think he had a little spell where he just lost himself.
Yeah, I agree. And I think he was trying to overcorrect. I think he seemed to be kind of more pissed at Arsenal at this point as well.
Well, we have to be careful of this, though, Jazz, as well, because I think the time wasting, and we do it a lot, right? I'm not going to sit there and bitch at other teams because we do it a lot. We have to be careful about this because we are going to turn refs against us with a lot of the stuff that we're doing. We did it last year. We turned refs against us a couple of times last year with the time wasting that we were doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think this is one of the harshest, like, double yellow sending offs
Yeah,
I've
harshest since
seen.
Martinelli at Wolves, right?
Oh God, yeah, yeah. That this wasn't as bad as that, but I mean, factoring in the two yellows,
I think this is worse because you could argue the Martinelli at Wolves one. You could maybe, I mean, I don't think it was, but you could maybe argue that both of those could be a yellow on their own. This second one wasn't even a foul, let alone a yellow.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. It feels more egregious. The Martinelli ones feel a little
It's
more
because you
egregious.
don't see it, right? Two yellow cards given for one passage of play, you don't see it. That's why.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
so the sending off comes and we immediately just retreat into our shell. And I didn't like what we did. But like I said, when I looked it back, we were actually in control. They only had two little minor chances after that. We had the Eze dive that he should have been booked for, and he wasn't. And then we had the late one from Edouard when he couldn't get his head on the cross because it was a bit behind him. And that is all they had. Like, they did not have another chance. We controlled this game completely.
Yeah, I mean, the highlights made it look a lot more safe for us than I remember being, watching it up
What's the
until.
emotion of the moment, right? You see,
Yeah.
Palace had all the ball for 20 minutes between the sending off and Zinchenko coming onto the pitch. Those 20 minutes between like 68 and 88 minutes, whatever it was, those 20 minutes, Palace had, I think they had 80% of the ball during that little spell. So it feels a lot more like you're on the edge of your seat. But when you watch it back, it really wasn't an issue.
Yeah, I mean, and it really does just come down to emotion, like, doesn't it? I mean, like, it's all about, if you go back and watch a game knowing the score, you're going to feel way more secure in it. But I have no doubt that it probably was a lot more secure, the second time through. It's just, we're all fans, we're all stressed, right? I mean,
yeah, it's exactly what it is. You can't help but be like that in the moment. And I think
yeah.
sometimes that's what I've learned through doing this is that, I never used to watch games back. I'd watch the highlights again and again, but I rarely watch the whole game back. Now I try to watch the whole game back if I can before we do these pods, but to get a clearer mind. And I've just realized that games look completely different the second time around.
No, I agree. Yeah, I've watched quite a few games back, again, since we've started doing this pod. And I agree. You look at it a totally different way than when it was happening. I think there's just security in knowing the score. But I mean, just visually, you can even, parse more things about, some plays, some players, all that kind of stuff. It's really great. If anybody's not watched a game back, I definitely suggest, picking one and giving it a shot and trying to follow like a strategy or a player or something like that, and seeing how your opinion changes after it.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
really
It will definitely change your perspective 100%.
Yep.
No doubt
Yep.
about it. Okay, mate. All right. Well, that's kind of the meat and potatoes of the game done. We'll come back in the second half. I want to get into a little bit about Declan Rice and what he's
Yeah.
brought to us, and also a little bit more about Arteta's subs and that sort of stuff. So we'll see you guys after the break, Juz. I will see you back here in a few minutes.
Sounds good.
Hey guys, just a couple of quick halftime messages for you. Firstly, we'd really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app. It really helps us reach a wider audience, particularly on Apple Podcasts. Secondly, we're on all the social media platforms as the NN Pod. We're really trying to build a strong Gooner community. So next time you're on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, look us up, give us a like or a follow, send us a message, interact with other listeners, or just have a look around. Thanks for listening from myself, Paz, and Juz. We really appreciate it. Welcome back to the Non-Negotiables podcast. This is part 2. Juz, where I want to start with this is £105 million steal. You don't hear that very often, but we absolutely robbed West Ham. Declan Rice was sensational yesterday. And again, I think we're still nowhere near what he's capable of. You can already see him developing in front of your eyes. How impressed were you with him yesterday?
Mate, I was massively impressed. I think this was kind of his like breakout game. I thought he was just a physical monster. Some of his passes were ridiculous. I know there were people that had doubts, not many, but people that had doubts about him replacing Party in the 6 and expected him left 8. But I think he just showed like that additional ounce of class at why he is so good. And we touched about it on this pod about how this is one transfer that it wouldn't miss, right? It couldn't miss. And I think he's proving it already. I mean, his physical ability is just so
he's a fucking monster. Like
you
that,
feel
that's
it,
all you
right?
can say. He's an absolute monster. And when he carries the ball, you can't get the ball off him. And he carries the ball. He's comfortable on either side. It is insane how good he is at this sort of stuff. And I think he's already starting to add bits to his game, right? I've said it time and time again. I think we're at 25% of what he's capable of. And he's already starting to add some of that passing range that we really didn't see very much of at West Ham because he didn't have the players around him to be able to do it. But like the little flicked ball through to Eddie for the chance that he put over the bar. And there were a couple of other ones during the game where he broke the lines. And this is what he wasn't doing against Nottingham Forest. Remember I said to you, I thought he was playing safe. He wasn't playing safe last night. He really, really looked like a superstar in the making.
Hey, he was like astounding to me, and I'm glad to see it. I actually was willing to give him a little time. I thought it would take him a little time to kind of bed into that 6 because it's a lot, right? I mean,
it took him 90 minutes.
Yeah, but I mean, he was brilliant last night, and I think it gives us such a huge advantage having a player that's, I mean, he's technically sound. He's physically imposing. He's defensively.
He's a two-way player, right? Like Partey is not a two-way player. He's a one-way player from deep. He's from deep and he plays forward. Rice is a two-way player. When we were under pressure at the end there, Rice was the one shielding in front of the back line, making sure they could only go from side to side. He's obviously 6'2", so he gives you that extra height as well. He doesn't stop running. I just think he gives us something completely different as that defensive midfielder, that screen, and that's his position.
Yeah, no. I agree, and I think he's going to be brilliant in the 6. I do think he's going to have maybe a little up and down as he fully adjusts because it's a lot more responsibility than West Ham.
I don't. I think you are. No, I don't. I think
he's nailed it.
I think the Forest game is the lowest point he's going to have. I think it's all up from here, and I'm telling you, the ceiling on him is unbelievable. And I think you're going to see him play a little bit like a 6-8 hybrid, a lot with the way he carries the ball. I think he'll get 10 goals this season because he's going to get forward as well. I mean, he basically plays 2 roles in one. That was the point, right? That was the point where we said to get Havertz, you need Rice. And this was the point. Rice plays 2 roles in one. So when Havertz goes to that centre forward spot to win the ball in the air, Rice is covering not only the 6, but also the 8. He does both jobs. I
mean, really, 3 roles in one because he can drop into that back line like nothing either as a CB.
I'm telling you, and I've made this comparison 100 times. To me, Declan Rice is Roy Keane. That is what he is. That is how I see him as Roy Keane. He can play centre-back. He can play the 6. He can play the 8. He's phenomenal at all of them. I think he's Roy Keane.
Hey, man, I love what I saw from him yesterday. I'll be really curious to see, not that I have any doubts. That's not what I mean. But I'll be really curious to see how, he does against United. I think just the kind of step up in the counter-attacking football that they're going to play will be really interesting to see how he plays against it. But I have no doubts he's going to just boss that game.
I'm interested to see the weekend because I think he's going to be doing a lot more going forward. I think he's, I said to you, I think he's going to score 10 goals. I think you might see the first of them at the weekend because he's going to be able to camp out on the edge of the box a lot more. we don't know what the team's going to be yet, but I think he's going to be able to get a lot. He's going to do a lot more further forward than he, and I mean, he was doing that a little bit yesterday, and he was doing it a lot against Forest. But I think Saturday he's going to be. I think he must be rubbing his hands. Can't wait to play on Saturday. He's settled in so quickly as well. Like he's the one out in front of the media all the time. He loves it.
Yeah, no. I agree. He seems to have adapted so quick. I'm really excited about this player, and of course, I mean he's 105 million pounds signing, but so many of those high transfer fee signings haven't worked out. But I mean, we've just got like a gem. We've got a gem.
Well, and anyone that thought that fee was high, and I think everybody probably thought it was a little bit high. I think Arsenal thought it was a little bit high. Arsenal in the February is it's well noted that they believed they could get him for 80 million. We've ended up going to 105. I said what 6-8 months ago that I thought 100 million would be fair because you're looking at 10 years of a linchpin in your midfield. So I thought 100 million was fair. But anybody that doubted that, mate, like I said at the start of this, we absolutely stole him. We are lucky that Edu and Arteta are not under arrest for theft for coming away from there with him for that.
It's absolutely crazy that after chasing him for 2-3 years, that Chelsea signed Enzo Fernandez for 120 million and let Declan Rice go for 105 million to Arsenal. Like, I'm shocked by that.
Well, that club's a basket case, though, aren't they? They don't know what they're doing. They're signing people left, right, and centre, and this is actually a good point to bring this in. Just we will come back to some stuff from the Palace game, but that's quite a good segue for this. So they're being linked with following Balogun at the minute, right? We're hearing like from what I read tonight, and I don't know how true this is, but Arsenal have told them 70 million, and they're saying closer to 45 million, which I think would be a fair price. I'd have no worries about selling him to Chelsea. None at all.
This is kind of an interesting one. I mean, I wouldn't really worry about selling him to Chelsea either. I just hope we we're cursing, right, on the podcast, yeah?
I mean, you're with me, so it's going to happen.
I just hope we, fucking rake them over the coals for him. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, obviously, what you'd really like is the Havertz money back, right? That's what you really want. You're not going to get a sell-on fee out of Chelsea, and that's fine. I ain't got a problem with that as long as we get a decent amount up front. And Balogun is, I mean, he is exactly what they've been signing over the last 18 months. I said it before. They're trying to basically skip Brighton out of the equation and buy these players before they go there, and they're spending all these money on players that might work out. And to be honest with you, if he goes there, I don't think he'll work out.
Yeah, I don't either.
It's a number 9 graveyard.
Yeah. For a Balogun, I think it'd be a poor career choice. I think
he'd love it. I think that's where he wants to go. If the interest is real, I think that's where he's going to want to go.
Really?
Yeah, I do. 100%. He can stay in London. He's going to be paid massive amounts of money. He's probably going to get a 10-year contract. And for, he'll be absolutely set for life. He doesn't have to move house. I think this, honestly, I actually think is probably the best move for him and for us. Not him career-wise, but him financially wise, and for us financially wise, because no one's going to pay us the money that they'll pay us.
Yeah. I mean, way better than League no matter what. League
Yeah, you can't sell him to League because you're not going to get the money. Like Monaco are not going to stomp up the money. So I think he might actually end up there, but I wouldn't be bothered about it.
Let me ask you this, Gav. Just curious. Would you rather sell him to Chelsea for 45 million pounds or Monaco for 45 million euros?
If there's that little in it, sell him Monaco. But I think if Chelsea are in, I don't think Monaco is going to be an option, would be my honest opinion. I think if Chelsea are in for him, he's going to push to go to Chelsea, and we are going to have to basically facilitate it.
Yeah, you're probably right. Do you know how, if he was, I mean, I'm sure he's probably close to Omar Hutchinson as well.
I mean, I think
I would assume.
They're about the same age, right? Amari might actually be a little bit younger. But like I said, you've got to get used to the fact that you're going to sell between the Premier League, right? Between the top clubs and Premier League. We've bought Havertz.
But we're going to have
United
to.
bought Mason Mount. This is where the money is. So this is what you are. This is what you're going to get. So I think, like I said, I just wouldn't be bothered about it at all. I don't want him to. Funnily enough, I would much prefer him to go to Chelsea than I would to go to Tottenham. And I actually think that Tottenham are a better team than Chelsea for a start. I don't think they're great, but I think they're better than Chelsea. And I just don't care if he goes to Chelsea.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think I'd rather see him, and I think I've got I'm an American, right? So obviously I've got that number 1, number 9 for the U.S. And I hope he does well career-wise. That plays in the back of my head. I think I'd prefer him to go to somewhere like Monaco. But yeah, I could definitely see the Chelsea sale happening. And I think they're going to be, the Premier League in general is going to be the only place we're going to get what we roughly expect for him, I think.
That's where I'm coming from on it as well. So just to get back to how we've started the season then, mate, are you concerned that we've had 2 performances where we haven't blown the opposition away? We've not been out of sight when we should have been. Or do you actually consider this a really promising start, considering we knew we weren't going to hit the ground running? We all said it in pre-season that we weren't looking fantastic. We're trying to bed in a new system with new players. And we've done that, taking 6 points from 6. Which way are you seeing this?
Man, mate, this is actually a pretty tough question. I am generally very optimistic. I am a little concerned, but these have been concerns I've had for kind of Mikel's whole coaching stature. I don't like that we never go for the throat. I don't really like his safe, controlling substitutions, but maybe that's just me, but I'm a little concerned. I mean, I think Nottingham Forest and Crystal Palace are 2 pretty easy games. I know historically we've got a thing with Crystal Palace, but they should have been easier than they were, and an opportunity to rack up a little bit of goal differential. I know the red card changes things against Crystal Palace, but I got to be honest, I'm a little concerned about it. Mate, your thoughts?
I'm a little frustrated, I would say, by it. I mean, we should have had 4 against Palace before the sending off. We should have been out of sight against Forest as well, so I find that frustrating. But I actually think this is a positive, because we started last season on fire and then we dropped off towards the end. You don't want to be peaking in October and November, which is where we peaked last year, right?
Yeah.
Like we peaked pre-World Cup last year, and you don't want to be doing that. So if we're winning, I was worried we were going to drop some silly points early. And we still might. We're definitely not home and dry, but I was worried we were going to drop some silly points early and be struggling to catch up from 12 points behind in December. That's what I was worried about. We've started with 2 wins out of 2. We look like we're not firing on all cylinders, but we're still dominating games. So I actually think this is a positive thing, because we're learning how to play, and we're doing it without Jesus as well. So you've got to remember that. We're also doing it without our preeminent number 9.
In Zinchenko, who I think was the most influential new player we signed last year.
Yeah, and Zinchenko. And when Zinchenko came onto the pitch yesterday, and it was late. So let me just tell you the minutes of these substitutions, right?
Go ahead.
So his first substitution was Gabriel for Martinelli on 70 minutes, and that was a reaction to the red card, right? A bit like his early substitution last week was obviously the Timber injury, because he had to come off, and then he didn't make another sub till 84 minutes last week, right? So this time it's Gabriel for Martinelli on 70. Then he brings Jorginho on for Nketiah on 79 minutes. That is late. He brings Kivior and Zinchenko on in the 89th minute. To me, that's still an issue. Like, I think the Zinchenko one especially should have been made earlier, because the difference that Zinchenko made as soon as he came onto the pitch was unbelievable. He came onto the pitch, combined immediately with Jorginho, and we straight away had 2.5 minutes where we just kept the ball. And we hadn't had the ball for the previous 20 minutes. All we'd been doing is lumping it into space and it coming straight back. As soon as Jorginho and Zinchenko are on the pitch together, we started controlling that ball again.
Yeah. And
let me just say this real quick. The substitutions that Arteta made were absolutely correct. They were the right substitutions. I just think he made them late.
Yeah. And I almost hate to talk about this just because like I feel like we're beating a dead horse, but this is an issue, right, Gaff? I mean, these subs are way too late.
And this is an issue, right? And this is where it gets a bit weird, right? Because we had Arsene Wenger was so dynamic when he first joined. His first 7-8 years, his subs were phenomenal. You'd see at the hour mark, if we were chasing a game or needed a goal, we'd have 6-7 forwards on the pitch. And all of a sudden, he reverted to this formulaic way where he made a substitution every game on 70 minutes. That would be the first sub, regardless of what was happening in the game. That was what happened. We went from that to Emery, who was like a fucking mad scientist. You'd have 3 half-time substitutions, the team shape. I remember a game, and I will find the clip and I will post it on our social media, of someone coming on at half-time. I can't remember who it was. It might have been
Kolasinac?
No, it might have been Rob Holding. Someone come on and they turned around to one of the centre halves and said, "What formation are we playing?" And it was at half-time, so they just had the team talk. That is madness. So that was that year under Emery, right? It was completely mad. I don't know what no one knew what he was doing from 1 minute to the next.
No, nobody did.
We go from this to Arteta, who just doesn't want to make any substitutions. He just doesn't. He gets forced into substitutions, and that's the only time he makes them, except for his standard Trossard for Martinelli, which would have been the sub on 74 minutes had there not been a red card.
Yeah, I know. And, look, I love Mikel. I love him from a player, captain, coach. This is a long-standing issue that I have with him. I don't know exactly what he needs to happen to, do a little better in this area. But, mate, I mean, after hearing last season that we made, the least amount of changes, least amount of subs, blah, 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 stats wise, it's just like you'd think he would do a little bit better. I mean, why not Trossard for Nketiah, 60, you know what I mean? I mean, there's so many things. I mean, Smith Rowe and Vieira, they still haven't appeared.
I mean, yesterday, you can write yesterday off because the sending off was basically just before 70 minutes, and it changed the game, and we were in complete control until then point. There was no real need to make changes and stuff. So yesterday, last night, I'm ready to throw that one out the window, whatever. But yeah, whatever. But we've got 2-3 years of previous at this point of watching it to say that even if there hadn't been a sending off yesterday, probably wouldn't have been much different.
Yeah, and I'm watching these squads. His full Arsenal squads change before my eyes, and you go from guys like Pablo Mari, Socrates, Kolasinac into damn good players, and I'm still not seeing the change I expect to see. I gave him a lot of credit in the beginning because the squad was pretty shit, right? Let's be honest. I mean, we didn't.
It was abhorrent when you look back. That squad, the squad that he inherited, was terrible. Yep, I mean, we were 8th because we were an 8th place team with an 8th place squad.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, 100%. But now I feel like we've got a lot of really, really good players that can make a big impact off the bench. We've seen Trossard and Smith Rowe both come off the bench and make huge impacts, and he's still, again, I mean, I'm with you. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt with the sending off, but man, I just feel like we could be doing a lot more. In poor Saka, man. I mean, he's going to have another season where he logs 5,000 minutes.
I think we're just going to have to accept that this is the manager we've got. He doesn't like making changes. He doesn't even like making changes to the first 11. Like generally, if he wins one week, the team's the same the next week. Last night the only change was enforced. Timber out and Tomy in. I just think he's just a manager that doesn't like change, and that's it. Arsene Wenger was very similar, and I think we're just as much as he loves to he likes to buy players a lot more than Arsene Wenger did, but he just doesn't like changes in the game, and we're just gonna have to accept that, I think.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And then that's why I said I kind of, I almost hate talking about this at this point because, not only are we beating a dead horse, but there's nothing we can really, do about it. But it is frustrating, I think, from a fan's perspective to continue to see this. And, he's getting the results now, which is great. But, it doesn't make it really any easier, I think, that we have this huge bloated squad. The fact that we're not going to be able to register like 7 players, I think, as of right now. And he only uses like 13 guys.
Yeah, no, it's nuts. So on that, we've had the Gabriel rumors. We touched on it a little bit at the start with the Saudi stuff. I can't see this happening. I don't see us selling Gabriel. I certainly don't see us selling Gabriel right now. I mean, I don't know that there's even an amount of money that you would sell him for. I mean, what would it take? I mean, I hope to God we don't sell him for 60 million or something like that, because we'd never be able to replace him. To me, unless you're talking about 200 million, I don't see how, like, even for 100 million, I don't think I'd sell him right now. There's what, 10 days left of the window. The fuck are you going to do?
Yeah, and he's been such a stickler for like a left-footed left center back. I can't see it. And I would be shocked if it happened. But I do have raised eyebrows about this one, not necessarily the transfer, but just why he's been excluded from the starting lineup for 2 game weeks now.
Yeah, and I think until basically it's over, and I believe the Saudi window, for whatever their window's worth, I mean, I'm sure that their government would just change the transfer window if they need to, but I think that goes on for a couple of weeks after our one ends. But
3 weeks.
3 weeks,
3
yeah.
weeks.
But I mean, obviously, you can't sell a defender and not replace him when we've already just lost Timber for the year. So I just can't see this. I think it's mad. Go on, yeah, tell me.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, yeah, I agree. I think it's nonsense. I just do, like I said, I raise my eyebrow at it because it's weird that I assume it's the absence of Zinchenko that makes him want to play Ben White and Saliba together. But it's still kind of odd to me. But I don't think we're selling him.
No, I guess we'll find out next week, because you've got to imagine Zinchenko's back in next week.
Yeah.
Another absolutely nutty rumour, Pepe. So I don't know where this has come from, but apparently there were crisis clear the air talks between Pepe and Arteta says to him, okay, if you're going to be a good boy, you can come back into the squad. Have you ever heard a bigger load of bollocks in your entire life?
Mate, this is a load of garbage. I promise you, Pepe will probably never pull on an Arsenal shirt again. I can't believe this is like a real rumor. He doesn't fit Arteta's system at all. He's not a good Saka replacement. This is trash, and whoever made it up is dumb.
All that's happened here is we have brought him back into the training ground because he wasn't training with us until last week.
Yeah.
We've brought him back in to allow him to train with us until we can get rid of him. And there's going to be one of 2 ways that we're going to get rid of him. He's either going to go somewhere on a free, which is the absolute preferred option for us. And I think we will keep banging that drum until the Saudi transfer window closes, right? Like September 1st, when our transfer window closes, won't be the end of this. If he isn't gone to someone by then, we are going to absolutely keep him until the Saudi window closes. The day after the transfer window, Edu is going to hand him a big fat check and tell him to leave.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I can't see it happening any other way. Honestly, I think there's already been discussions about paying him off to cancel his salary.
Yeah, we don't want to do it, and that's fine. I understand why we don't want to do it, and I think, and nor should we want to do it. And I think we have to try and keep this open until the very end of the Saudi window, until the last possible minute. But it's going to happen. That is exactly what's going to happen, and the same thing is going to happen with Cedric, by the way.
Oh fuck! I forgot Cedric's still even here. Yeah, you're probably right. Do you think we will just end up giving him away, or do you think we're gonna have to pay him off? Not Cedric, Pepe.
I think we're going to have to pay both of them off. I think we're going to have to pay them off. I don't think if Pepe won't go to one of the lower, like no one's going to pay him his wages. He's on 140 grand a week. He turned down Besiktas, and I don't blame him. I don't blame him. He's just watched what 5 players walk out the door with a big bag of cash to go away. So I don't blame him for not wanting to give that money up. But that's what's going to happen. So unless one of the Saudi clubs, and we're not going to get a fee even if it's a Saudi club, but if one of the Saudi clubs come in and will pay him the money, then maybe he goes on a free transfer. That is our best hope. After that, 140 grand a week. What's that? 5.2. So that's just over 6 million a year. We're going to have to give him 4 million to fuck off.
Yeah, I think you're probably right there. Yeah, but I mean, hopefully there's something to be done. I remain optimistic, even if I, probably assume we're gonna have to pay him off. Yeah, Cedric, we're definitely gonna have to pay off.
Absolutely, no question about it. Again, the day after the Saudi window closes, because I'm guessing we're doing everything we can to shop him there as well. The day after that, he's going to be £2.5 million richer and walking into somewhere like Fulham on a free transfer.
Yeah. I'm thinking the same thing. Did you see the Brighton loan interest in Sambi Lakanga?
It's a loan. I thought it was a permanent thing, and we were looking for 20 million. It's a loan.
A loan. That's what I saw. I'm all for that. I still think he's got some potential. Spending a season at a club like Brighton with De Zerbi, who knows how much he could raise his value or even end up being a solid player for us, right? He's
not going to be a solid player for us. Like he's just not. You can forget that. Sambi has played his last game for us. Like it's just not going to happen. The only way is if we can't get him out on loan and he plays a couple of League Cup matches. That's it. Sambi's never playing for us any meaningful minutes. No, he's got no more chance than Pepe. But I'm still hopeful we can actually get a decent transfer fee for him, whether it is a permanent now where we can get our money back, or whether it's he goes out on loan for a year, looks like a good Premier League player, and we get it turned permanent.
I honestly think he could do that. I
do too. I think he is a good Premier League player. I don't think he's good enough for us, but I do think he's a good Premier League player.
I think he could be really good in like a double pivot for a team. I don't think he's a lone 6, and I don't think he's an 8. But I think he could play in a pivot next to maybe a little more offensive or defensive player. But I think the Bright move would be great for him. I respect De Zerbi. I think it's a good place to be. I think he'd fit in quite nicely there, and I think he could really raise his transfer value. Another 5-10 million. Yeah, I mean, even if we broke even at this point, it's better than nothing.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And so out of everyone that's left that we obviously want to get rid of, right? So you've got Cedric, you've got Tierney, you've got Holding, you've got Tavares, you've got Sambi, you've got Pepe, you've got Balogun, you've got, who else am I forgetting? I think I might be forgetting another one.
Did you say Cedric, or I can't remember?
Did I say? I don't know if I did or not. But out of all those players, realistically, other than Balogun, do you see us getting a fee for any of them? Because I'm at the point where I don't think we get a fee for any of them. I think we might see 5 or 6 of them leave on loan, but I've given up. I just don't think we're going to get a fee for any of them other than Balogun.
I think you may be right. I could still see a small fee for Holding come in. And when I say small, I mean, I'm talking like £4 million or something like that. Even that might be high. But yeah, I think we're going to see a flurry of loans, hopefully with some options or obligations to buy. And Balogun, I still see going for a price. I'm with you. I think we'll
get decent money for Balogun. I do. I think we'll get 40. We'll get 40 or 40 plus, which is more than I thought we would get for him, because I think people are going to be desperate, and he's the best of the bunch for the strikers. So I think we will. But the others, even
Tavares,
if to buy,
I could see a fee for Tavares.
I don't think so now. I
You
just
don't think so?
No, I don't. I don't think so. I just don't see where he's going to go. And I think if we get these loans with options to buy, I think everyone is going to be really, really disappointed with the value of the option or the obligation to buy. Like, for example, and I know I'm always harsh on him, but I don't think we're getting 15 million for Kieran Tierney. I just don't. I think if we loan him with if we loan him with an obligation, I think we're going to end up getting like 10 million for him. Rob Holding, I think if we get money for anyone, I agree with you. I think Rob Holding is probably the most likely. That's going to end up being £1 million. I don't think we're going to get anything like what we think is value for any of these players. I'm annoyed by it. It's not what I expected at the start. I'm shocked by it. I'm shocked that no one wants to pay 25 million for Kieran Tierney. I thought we could get, I didn't think we'd get 30, 35 million for him, but I thought 25 million. I thought we could get that off of somebody. I just don't think it's going to happen. Now, I think everybody's looking at us. They're looking at our squad. They see the blood in the water, and they're willing to just wait it out.
Yeah, I think so. And we've discussed this on this very pod about how a lot of our players are not going to be first, second, third choice for clubs, but they could be fourth, fifth, and we'll see teams coming in for them at the end of the window. I still think that's going to happen, but yeah, I tend to agree with you. They're going to take the loan gamble, and I think the options are going to be pretty poor. I don't know how many of them are actually going to sell. I am surprised about Kieran Tierney the most. I think I figured, like you,
Tierney, Tavares, and Holding are the ones that surprised me the most. I'm not surprised that it's tough to shift Sambi because of how much we paid for him. I'm not surprised that it's tough to shift Cedric because he's shit. I'm not surprised that it's tough to shift Pepe because of the amount of money that he's on. So them ones, I'm not surprised about them. I am surprised that we haven't been able to move Tierney, Tavares, and Rob Holding.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Let me ask you this, Gav. Do you think, because I'm sure the club feels like we do, that they'd be able to have moved a couple more of these players, do you see a surprise late outgoing?
No.
You don't think so?
No, I don't. I don't think so. I think the players that we want to leave are the only players that are going to be going out. I don't see it. I think we've built this squad. We've built this squad meticulously. It's been perfectly planned. And whatever you think about Arteta not wanting to use them, these are the players that he wants. The ones that we've mentioned are the ones that he doesn't want. It's not difficult to see players that Arteta doesn't rate, right? Like at this point, how many injuries would it take for Kieran Tierney to make the bench? Another 4?
I
mean, it's not going to happen. Pepe, this is why the thing about Pepe is so laughable. We would go with 8 subs before we put Nicolas Pepe on the bench. That's Arteta's way. It's his way. He's not going to do it. Sambi, he's not. You've seen these players training alone. Pepe wasn't even allowed back at the damn training ground. But you've seen these players training alone on their exercise bikes after the first team have gone home. Arsenal have made it very clear that these players need to go. The players that are involved, I don't think we're selling any of them. I would be stunned if Gabriel left. I would be stunned. I heard someone say Trossard's not going to be happy on the bench. I would be stunned.
I did too, yeah.
I would be stunned if we entertained offers for Leandro Trossard. There's no way. None of these players, even Eddie, none of these players are going anywhere that are in our actual first team squad.
Smith, bro?
No, none of them are going anywhere. I'm telling you, none of them are going anywhere. Unless you got a stupid offer in the last bit for Smith Rowe. Let's say Villa have just had a load of injuries, right? So Coutinho's done his ACL now as well.
So really? I haven't seen that.
Yeah, he did his ACL the weekend. So that's Coutinho and Buendia gone with ACL injuries. So maybe if Villa came and said, look, we'll give you 70 million for Smith Rowe, that's a different story. And he's obviously probably the most peripheral of all the first team players, right? But I really don't see that happening. So I don't see any of these players going. I don't know that would really count as a surprise sale, would it? I mean, I think we're talking more the first sort of 14 names. It would upset you. It wouldn't surprise you.
I still think yeah, okay. Yeah, you're probably right.
Yeah, I mean, he's not what number, we talked about this before, what number sub is he? So if you're looking at attacking subs, Trossard is first off the bench, right?
He'd be
Then
my second sub off the bench. Like
What's that?
every time. He'd be my second sub off the bench every
Yeah,
time.
but he's not Arteta's. Arteta's
I know.
second sub is Fabio Vieira.
Yeah.
And his
But
third
that's
sub
so weird though, right?
third sub is Reece Nelson.
That's so weird.
Yeah, but that's the way it is. ESR is not one of the first three game changers that he looks at on the bench. I agree with you that it's weird, but that is where we're at. His first three game changers off the bench are Trossard, then Vieira, then Nelson. You can maybe switch Nelson and Vieira around sometimes, but those are the first three, and then he will look at Smith Rowe.
You know, I respect Vieira as a player and see more in him than you do, and I still find it shocking that he's above Smith Rowe right now. But, you know, it is.
Well, especially when you consider that one has proven to be an impact player and one hasn't.
Yeah.
But Vieira is an Arteta signing.
And he's older too, isn't he?
Smith Rowe.
I think he's a year older.
They've got to be pretty close. I think are they 24 and 23? Maybe they've got to be pretty close.
3 and 22, I think.
Yeah, I know they've got to be pretty close. But
yeah.
I mean, he said, Arteta spent the best part of 40 million quid on Vieira. So I would guess that's why he's ahead of him in the pecking order as much as anything else. But that's it. So I don't know that I would consider Smith Rowe that much of a surprise departure. But even so, I can't see it. I think the squad that we've got now is the squad that we're going to go with. And those peripheral players, we are going to move heaven and earth to try and get them out of the club in any way, shape or form. So I would not be surprised if Nuno Tavares goes on loan to Aston Villa, Kieran Tierney goes on loan, even maybe back to Celtic. I would not be surprised to see Holding, Tierney, Tavares, Sambi all go on loan.
Yeah, me neither. I wouldn't either. Yeah. And sell Balogun, right? I mean, that's all we got.
Yeah, I think Balogun's going to go. I do. I think you're going to see it. I think you're going to see maybe not him go this week, but I think you're going to see it start to warm up this week with regards to Balogun. The other ones, I think you're probably going to see after the Fulham game. I think that's when the loan offers and stuff are going to come, because it's the deadline is the 1st. I believe at 11 p.m. UK time, so 6 p.m. our time, and that will be next Friday. So I think that's when that Thursday and Friday are probably going to be when we see a lot of these players leave on loan.
Yep, you're probably right. And don't forget, by the way, not to change lanes too hard. I know we're almost out of time. We will have our Champions League draw as well, August 30th.
Yeah, same day.
So
day before the Thursday.
Thursday. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yep. So we'll definitely have to. We'll be on here again doing a pod, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll do a pod for that, and we might even wrap it up the day after with the after the transfer deadline to wrap both up in one. I don't know. We'll figure out.
That probably makes more sense.
Yeah, we'll figure out how to work that one out. So, okay, mate. Well, thanks for coming on tonight, and I will see you towards the end of the week to look forward to the Fulham game.
All right, mate. Sounds good. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night. Good night, everybody.
Good night.